All right, let me be honest with everybody right out of the gate. I did not grow up watching the television show Naruto. Listen, I know. Just relax. Hey, put down that kunai. You see, when Naruto first started popping off, I was in that phase of life where I thought my anime taste was just, let's say, superior. You couldn't tell me anything. I was on my Gundam Wing, Dragon Ball Z, Outlaw Star, Cowboy Bebop, Ghost in the Shell, Akira, Ninja Scroll era. So in my head, I was out here like some tiny anime sommelier. Like, yes, this has notes of existential dread and political collapse. Most exquisite. Meanwhile, I took one look at this loud blonde kid in an orange jumpsuit screaming and running like he was late for gym class, saying things like, "Believe it!" And I was immediately like, "No, this ain't for me. This shit looks dumb as hell." And I gotta tell you, I have now watched Naruto at the age of 37, and I have been kicking younger me in the ass ever since. Because this loud, goofy, orange, ramen fueled little menace of a show dug its claws directly into my chest. I mean, I have belly laughed watching this show. I have gotten misty eyed watching this show. I have gotten fully, aggressively, emotionally invested in these characters to the point where I'm sitting there like, hold up, why am I this mad right now? Why do I even care this much? Why am I ready to fist fight a fictional village government? And the answer is because Naruto is doing something way smarter than I ever gave it credit for. Because on the surface level, sure, it's the show with the loud kid, the orange jumpsuit, the headband, the weird run, the hand signs, the fox demon using his stomach as an apartment. But once you actually sit down and let this thing hit you, man, this show is about loneliness. It's about trauma. It's about war. It's about kids inheriting pain from adults who keep screwing the world up and then acting surprised when those kids come out damaged. Which is exactly why this feels like the perfect way to kick off something I've been wanting to do for a hot minute now. Welcome to the Average Joe Nerdcast Anime Celebration. We're going to be doing 6 anime-centered episodes. And this right here, this is episode 1. The big one. The monster, if you will. The, alright, let's sit down and really talk about it episode. And then after this, we're spinning off into 5 Naruto deep dives under that same celebration banner. Because once I got into this series, I realized real quick there was absolutely no way I was shutting up about it in just one episode. Wasn't going to happen. So yeah, this first one is the foundation, the bigger picture, the overhead map, if you will. Then after that, we'll start breaking the whole thing apart piece by piece. The trauma, the Uchiha, the villains, talk no jutsu, Naruto and Sasuke, I mean all of it. Because I'm going to say something that might sound just a wee bit dramatic. I think Naruto raised a whole generation of kids who were quietly drowning. And yeah, I know that sounds like a lot. It sounds dramatic, it sounds like I'm about to wildly overstate the importance of a ninja cartoon. But just hear me out. If you weren't there, it's very easy to reduce this show to just memes. Haha, ninja show. Edgelord Sasuke. Talk no jutsu. Filler hell. Cool. Great. Awesome. But if you were there, if you were a kid who felt invisible or unwanted, or like every room you walked into already had a version of you in it that people had decided on way before you even opened your mouth, then Naruto wasn't just a cartoon. It was a mirror. Because right out of the gate, this show gives you something kinda brutal for a story aimed at younger audiences. Here is a child. He did nothing wrong. and his entire village treats him like a crime scene. Nobody explains anything to him. Nobody sits him down. Nobody gives him the, hey kid, you're special speech. Nobody says, hey little man, here's why everybody looks at you like that. No, they just let him grow up in a social deep freeze and act confused when he starts getting really loud and annoying. And that's the thing, right? Naruto isn't loud because he's just annoying. He's loud because if he stops making noise, he's scared he'll disappear. And that hit me hard, man, because that's real. A whole lot of kids don't act out because they're bad. They act out because negative attention is still attention. Getting yelled at still means someone looked at you. That's real life kid logic. And Naruto gets that in a way a lot of other stories just don't. It understands that kids carry stuff. Not fake TV, aw, growing up is hard kind of stuff. I mean real legitimate weight. Loneliness, grief, neglect, pressure, abuse, expectations they never asked for, labels they never earned, pain they inherited from people older than them. And Naruto looks right at that and goes, yeah, that kid still matters. And that's why this show works. Not because it's perfect, because trust me, it isn't. We are absolutely going to talk about the filler. We are absolutely going to talk about pacing. And yes, we are absolutely going to talk about the war arc occasionally acting like it wandered in from Dragon Ball Z wearing a fake mustache. But none of that changes what's beating at the center of this thing. Because Naruto is not just about a kid chasing a dream. It's about a world that manufactures trauma for profit, calls it peace, and then dumps the bill on children. And sitting dead center in all of that is Naruto Uzumaki. This kid with a monster inside of him, getting treated like a walking time bomb by people who should have protected him. That's not just compelling, that's brutal. So when Naruto says he wants to be the next Hokage, it's not really about power. It's not, I want to be king. It's not, I want to rule. It's just a lonely kid screaming, please, somebody see me. And I think that's why this show stuck with so many people. Because under all the jokes and fights and hand signs and cool shit, Naruto was telling kids, you can come from nothing and still matter. You can be hated and still become loved. You can be broken and still become whole. And maybe most importantly, you do not have to become the worst thing that happened to you. And brother, that is a way bigger conversation than, hey, what's the best fight? So that's what we're doing today. No top 10 list, no speed run, no which arc clears bullshit. We're doing the real deep dive. How this world works, how it breaks people, why the villains make sense, why the heroes are a little messy, why the adults fail these kids over and over again, and why the kids are the ones left trying to fix all of it. So grab yourself some Ichiraku ramen and tie on that headband. And if you've ever felt like the world decided who you were before it bothered to get to know you, then this one's for you. Hey, and welcome to, or welcome back to, the Average Joe Nerdcast. I'm Nate, your resident Average Joe, your friendly neighborhood overthinker, and apparently the guy who waited until his late 30s to realize Naruto was out here cooking a 5-course meal the entire damn time. Better late than never, I guess. And if you're new around here, this is the show where we talk nerd culture the way we actually lived it. Not just what happened, but why it mattered, why it stuck, why some of this stuff still lives rent-free in our skulls all these years later. And if you've been here already, then you know the deal. We do not do drive-by takes over here. We don't do just vibes. We don't do, here's my top 5 fights and 3 hot takes. Smash that like button. Oh no. We take the long road. We do the lore. We do the emotional damage. We do the, wait a minute, why did this hit me this hard? Kind of conversations. And today, we're talking all about Naruto. Yeah, that Naruto. The orange jumpsuit, the ramen, the chaotic goblin energy, the running with your arms behind you thing that absolutely cooked an entire generation's hamstrings on playgrounds all across America. And the more I sat with this show, the more I realized this is not just a ninja story. This is a story about loneliness, about war, about inherited pain, about broken systems, about what happens when adults keep making necessary compromises and children are the ones forced to bleed for them. Which means before we can really talk about Naruto the person, we need to talk about the world that made him, because that's where this whole thing really starts. Not with a hero, but with a system. And not necessarily a cute system either. Not like, aw, ninja school, learn some jutsu, make some friends. No! This is a full-blown war economy wearing a headband. Every hidden village you see, from leaf, sand, mist, stone, cloud. These aren't just places people live. These are military states. They've got leadership. They've got intelligence divisions. They've got black ops units. They've got ranked soldiers. And most importantly, they take contracts. Meaning if somebody out there has a problem that can be solved with violence, these villages are like, yeah, we got a guy for that. Or several children. Take your pick. Which is absolutely insane when you really sit down with it. Because we're not talking about grown, seasoned adults most of the time. We're talking about kids. Like, literal children. And the system doesn't wait. It doesn't go, hey, let's let you grow up first. Figure yourself out, process your emotions. No. It goes, can you hold a kunai? Cool. You're in the workforce. The academy? That's not school. That's pre-deployment with homework. You're learning how to fight, how to track, how to lie, how to kill, before you even understand what it means to lose someone. And then we wonder why everybody in this show is walking around emotionally cooked. Like, yeah, man, you trained a 12-year-old to stab people and then told him to be strong when his teammate died. What did you expect? A therapy session? And the wild part is the adults don't think they're doing anything wrong. That's what makes it hit harder. This isn't cartoon villain logic. This is how it has to be. This is how we survive. This is how we maintain peace. And that word right there, peace. Naruto plays with that in a really uncomfortable way. Because peace in this world doesn't mean no war. It just means managed war. It means cold wars, proxy wars, missions that technically don't count, and conflicts happening just far enough away that leadership can sleep soundly at night. It's the kind of peace where everybody knows violence is still happening, it's just organized. And when things start getting shaky, when tensions spike, well, that's when the villages reach for their oh shit button, their deterrent, the nuclear option, the Jinchuriki. Now, if you watched this show when you were a kid, you probably heard that word and thought, oh man, that's dope. That means main character energy. No, it means human storage container for a walking natural disaster. That's what that is. And the craziest part? These kids aren't chosen because they're special. They're chosen because they're available. And the village tells itself this really comforting lie. We're honoring them. They're protecting us. They're really heroes. Meanwhile, they avoid them. They whisper about them. They treat them like they're just one bad day away from leveling the entire neighborhood. So now you've got this kid carrying something terrifying inside of them. And on top of that, they're completely isolated. No support, no explanation, no real connection. Just vibes, trauma, and a monster. And then the village looks at the result and goes, hey, why is this kid unstable? Dude, what did you think was going to happen? You took a child, turned them into a weapon, and then socially exiled them for being the weapon you made them. That's not a bug in the system. That is the system. And once you see that, you start realizing something just a wee bit messed up. This world is really, really good at creating trauma, and absolutely terrible at ever dealing with it. War orphans? Normal. Entire clans getting wiped out? Normal. Kids watching their parents die bloody? Also normal. And instead of stopping and going, hey, maybe we should rethink literally any of this, the system just keeps rolling right along. Promotes the survivors, calls them strong, hands them a higher rank, and then puts them in charge of the next batch of emotionally traumatized kids. Like, congratulations, you survived the trauma, now go pass it on to the next generation. And I'm not even saying that to be edgy. That's just what this show is doing, over and over again. So when we meet Naruto, loud, chaotic, attention-seeking, acting out, that doesn't come out of nowhere. That's not, haha, goofy main character. That's a completely logical response to a world that decided what he was before he ever got a chance to decide who he wanted to be. This is a system that creates monsters and then punishes the kids who survive becoming one. And right in the middle of all that, you've got this one knucklehead kid who just straight up refuses to accept it. So you take that world and all that pressure, all that fear, all that this is just how things are energy, and you drop one kid into the middle of it. And not just any kid. You give him a demon, and you make him the village's worst kept secret. And then you tell everyone else to treat him like he's radioactive. And that kid? That's Naruto Uzumaki. And from the second we meet him, the show is basically like, yeah, this is the problem child. Because he's loud, he's messy, he's impulsive, he's out here vandalizing the Hokage monument like he personally has beef with national landmarks. Which, honestly, is kind of iconic behavior if you really think about it. But the key thing the show does, and this is where it gets real smart, is it never lies to you about why he acts like that. Naruto isn't loud because he's just annoying. He's loud because silence feels like disappearing. If nobody talks to you, if nobody acknowledges you, if people look through you instead of at you, then being yelled at, hey, that's still a win, right? That's still, okay, cool, you see me. And every prank, every outburst, every hey, look at me moment is Naruto basically running the same test over and over. Am I real yet? And bro, that hits right in the feels. Because that's not anime logic, that's real kid logic. And the show doubles down on it. Naruto doesn't have parents, he doesn't have a family, he doesn't even have someone checking in on him like, hey man, you good? He's got a tiny apartment, a stack of instant ramen, and a monthly allowance that feels kinda like it was calculated by someone who was like, yeah, this is technically enough to not die. Barely. And instead of anybody sitting him down and explaining his situation, explaining the Nine-Tails Fox demon, and explaining why the village acts weird around him, the entire adult population all collectively goes, let's just not address this at all. Which is fucking insane. Because Naruto at this point isn't even dangerous, he's just alone. And here's where the show quietly does something kinda wild. Because Naruto should technically be a villain. Like, seriously, if you line it up, isolated, feared, no emotional support, raised inside a system that literally weaponizes children. That right there is a final boss origin story. That's how you get the guy at the end of the video game with the tragic monologue and the boss music. And Naruto just never goes that way. And it's not because he's clueless, it's not because he doesn't feel it, it's because he keeps making the same decision over and over again. To keep reaching out. Even when people shut him down, even when they lie to him, even when they treat him like garbage. He keeps going, nah, I still want connection. And look, let's be real, Naruto is not perfect. He is annoying sometimes. He yells, like a lot. He overpromises like he's running for office. He runs headfirst into problems with zero plan, like, yeah, we'll just figure it out mid punch. But that's not bad writing. That's a kid who never got taught how to regulate anything. Nobody ever set him down and went, hey, here's how you should process anger. So now he's just, well, doing his best with vibes and stubbornness. And then we get to the Hokage thing, because this is where younger viewers could have completely missed the point. Naruto doesn't want to be Hokage because he's power hungry. He doesn't care about ruling people, he doesn't care about politics. I mean, hell, he barely understands paperwork. Naruto wants to be Hokage because in his mind, that means everyone has to acknowledge him. Everyone has to look at him. Everyone has to finally admit, you matter. That's it. That's the whole dream. And that might be one of the most emotionally understandable motivations ever written for a main character. And this is where the show sneaks in humor in a way that actually works. Because, let's face it, Naruto isn't cool. He's not the prodigy, he's not Sasuke, he's not walking in there like, yeah, I am him. This dude is failing exams regularly, which is hilarious because the village is basically sitting on a walking nuclear deterrent, and he can't pass a written exam. Like, imagine finding out your strongest weapon cannot do long division. That's a problem. But that contrast is the point. Naruto's strength doesn't come from being the best, it comes from refusing to quit. Refusing to give up on people, refusing to give up on himself, refusing to just accept the version of him the world already decided on. And here's the part that really separates him from everyone else in this system. Naruto doesn't want revenge. He doesn't want the village to hurt the same way that he hurts. He just wants them to change, which is way, way harder. Because revenge, it's simple. But change? Now that's work. That's patience. That's getting hurt over and over again and still choosing not to swing back the same way. So when Naruto is joking around, when he's being goofy, when he's acting like a chaotic little gremlin, that's not tonal whiplash. That's just survival. That's a kid using humor as armor. Because if he ever actually sits still and processes everything, it's game over, man. That's too much. So he just keeps moving, keeps talking, keeps laughing. And slowly, almost by accident, he starts pulling people in. And not because he's impressive, but because he's honest. What you see is exactly what you get. No mask, no front, no pretending to be something he isn't. And in a world full of people hiding behind strength, status, or trauma, that stands out. And that's where things start to shift because Naruto doesn't just survive the system, he exposes it. He forces people to look at what they've been ignoring. And once people really see him, they start questioning the world that treated him like he was nothing. And that's when the story goes, all right, cool. You got one kid trying to hold on to hope. Let's make it even harder for him. So instead of letting Naruto just run around solo, the show groups him up. Team-based structure, 3-man squad, 1 adult supervisor, standard ninja package. Enter Team 7. And on paper, this looks like the most textbook anime setup of all time. You've got the loud underdog, the quiet prodigy, the smart girl, and one grown man who shows up late and refuses to explain literally anything. We've all seen this before. But Naruto, once again, is doing that sneaky little thing where it looks simple. And then you actually pay attention and go, oh, this is not stable. Because Team 7 is not a balanced team. It is a walking group chat of unresolved issues. So let's start with Sasuke. Because Sasuke walks into this story already operating at like 10 out of 10 emotional damage. This man is not quiet and cool. This is not your standard rival. This is a genocide survivor. Entire clan gone. Whole family wiped out. Childhood erased in one single night. And the person responsible? His own brother. Which to me is such an insane setup that the fact that anyone who watched this as kids and just accepted it is wild. Like, imagine enrolling for ninja school and your classmate is just casually carrying all of that baggage. And the system looks at him and goes, "Yeah, you seem emotionally stable enough for combat." Fucking unbelievable. So everything about Sasuke, the silence, the arrogance, the obsession with getting stronger, that's not him being edgy for the sake of being edgy. That's a kid who made a decision very early on. If I let myself feel this, then I'm done. So he compresses everything down into one singular goal: kill Itachi. End the story. Make the pain make sense. That's it. That's his entire operating system. And Naruto, being Naruto, looks at all of that and goes, "Yeah, I'm going to be friends with that guy." No hesitation. Zero self-preservation. Just pure vibes. Which is hilarious, but also really beautiful. Because Naruto sees something in Sasuke that no one else is really acknowledging. Not the prodigy, not the talent. The loneliness. And then you've got Sakura. And look, I'm gonna be fair here. Sakura gets cooked by the internet. Relentlessly. Unfairly, even. Because early on, yeah, she's not throwing hands like the others. She's not coming in with a demon fox, and she's not coming in with a cursed bloodline. She's just a kid. A regular kid. And that's exactly why she matters. Sakura is what happens when someone normal gets dropped into a system that is absolutely not normal. She signed up thinking ninja training, cool, adventure, let's go. And immediately got hit with, "Oh, this is trauma. This is a trauma job." And over time, Sakura does something really underrated. She adapts. She doesn't try to out Sasuke Sasuke. She doesn't try to out Naruto Naruto. She finds her lane. Medical ninjutsu. Support. Keeping people alive. Which, in a world obsessed with strength and killing, is low-key one of the most rebellious things you can do. Everyone else is figuring out how to destroy things. She's figuring out how to fix them. And then we gotta talk about this man. Kakashi Hatake. And he is not a teacher. He is a functioning adult held together by even more trauma and vibes. That's what that is. This man shows up late, reads inappropriate novels in front of minors, gives cryptic life lessons, and then disappears emotionally whenever things get real. And somehow, he is still one of the best mentors in the entire show, which says a lot about the state of mentorship in this world. Because Kakashi, he lost his father, lost his entire team, lost basically every emotional anchor he had before he was even fully grown. So now his entire approach to teaching is like, yeah, I'm not getting attached to y'all like that, but also I'm gonna die for you if it comes down to it. Which is kinda confusing energy. Very, I care about you deeply, but I will never say it out loud. And what ties all of them together is not friendship. At least not at first. It's all shared damage. Naruto wants to be seen. Sasuke wants revenge. Sakura wants to belong. Kakashi wants to not bury another team. And the show doesn't magically fix that. They argue, they clash, they misunderstand each other constantly. Half the time it feels like these four people should absolutely not be allowed on the same mission. Like somebody in human resources should have stepped in. Which brings us to the bell test. And this is where Naruto quietly tells you what the whole story is about. Because on paper, it's very simple. Get the bells. Don't get caught. Cool. Basic exercise. But what Kakashi is actually testing is this. Are you going to screw each other over to win? Or are you going to move like a team? Because the system they're in, rewards individual success. Be stronger, be faster, be better than the person next to you. But the only way they pass is by breaking the rules, by choosing each other over the mission. And that right there, that's the first crack in the entire shinobi system. Because Naruto doesn't succeed by playing the game correctly. He succeeds by going, yeah, I don't think the game is right. And that idea, that tension between what the system wants and what people actually need, that becomes the heartbeat of the entire show. Team 7 is not perfect. It's not clean, it's not stable, it's not even fully functional most of the time. But it is real. It's messy, it's frustrating, it's incomplete. And for Naruto, it's the first time in his life that something even remotely feels like a family. And once that bond exists, once you care about these people, the story does what it does best. It starts applying pressure relentlessly. Because now it's not just about one kid trying to be seen. Now it's about what happens when you give broken kids something to lose. And the show does not ease you into it. There's no warm up, no go fight some bandits and level up. No. First real mission, welcome to death. Enter Zabuza. And I love this arc because it immediately tells you this is not a game anymore. Zabuza doesn't show up like a cartoon villain. He's not doing speeches. He's not monologuing about world domination. This man pulls up like a contractor. Clock in, do the job, clock out. Cold, efficient, tired. Like he's done this 1,000 times before and doesn't even get adrenaline from it anymore. And then right next to him, Haku. And this is where the show gets disrespectful in the best possible way. Because Haku looks like the kindest human being alive. Soft voice, polite, gentle. And also, an absolute problem. Which is such a wild combo because Naruto being Naruto immediately starts talking to Haku like, yeah, you seem cool. And the audience is sitting there like, hey dude, maybe don't emotionally bond with the enemy child assassin. Too late. He's already in it. And that's the thing Naruto keeps doing. He keeps seeing the person before the role, before the label, before the mission. And when everything goes sideways, when Haku dies protecting Zabuza, Naruto doesn't respond like a trained shinobi. He responds like a kid who just watched something that shouldn't have happened. He gets mad, like genuinely mad. Not anime yell power up mad. I mean, this is wrong, and he calls it out. Right there, to Zabuza's face. You're treating him like a tool. You don't get to pretend this didn't matter. And what's crazy? Zabuza? He breaks. This grown man who has built his entire identity around being cold and detached cracks. Because Naruto said the one thing nobody else in this world is saying. This meant something. That right there, that's Naruto's real power. Not strength, not jutsu, not the fox demon. He exposes the lie people are living in. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. And then the show does something almost funny. It goes, all right, everybody, that was heavy. Time for the Chunin exams. Which sounds kind of fun, right? Tournament arc. Let's go! Except, this is the most unhinged school test of all time. Because this is not a test. This is a child survival gauntlet with spectators. You've got kids from different villages, some of whom are basically raised to hate each other. Thrown into life or death situations while adults sit in the stands like, yeah, let's see who makes it. The Forest of Death? Insane name. No HR department approved that. That's just what it is. You go in there, and if you come out, congratulations. You're probably traumatized, but hey, you passed. And this is where the cracks really start widening, because now the show starts peeling back what's under the surface. Sasuke starts getting pulled deeper into his trauma. And then we meet Orochimaru. And man, Orochimaru is a different kind of problem. Because he's not angry, he's not grieving, he's not even really emotional. He's just curious, and not the good kind. Not, how does this work curious. More like, what happens if I break this and see what's inside of it? Which is terrifying. Because Orochimaru looks at people, especially children, the way you look at a school project. Something to experiment on, something to test, something to push past its limits. And the system let him exist for a long time because he was useful, because he was powerful, because he didn't cross the wrong line until he did. Which again feels real in a way that's really, really uncomfortable. And while all of this is happening, Naruto is still out here running on vibes and determination, just refusing to die out of pure stubbornness. And then the show hits you with Gaara. And this is where it all finally clicks. Because Gaara is Naruto, if the world wins. Same setup. Jinchuriki, feared, isolated, raised without love. But instead of reaching out, Gaara turns inward, and then outward in the worst way possible. If no one will love me, then I'll make them fear me. That's his whole philosophy. And suddenly the show is like, hey, this could have been your main character, everybody. That fight between Naruto and Gaara, that's not about strength. That's just two kids arguing over what to do with pain. Naruto says, I found people. I held on. Gaara says, people hurt me. I became untouchable. And when Naruto wins, it's not really because he's stronger. It's because he refuses to give up on the idea that Gaara can change. Which kinda sounds cheesy on paper, until you realize this man is basically arguing against a lifetime of trauma. And somehow, he's getting through. And this is where the pattern locks in. Every single arc, new character, same core issue. Used by the system, broken by it, or twisted by it. And Naruto just keeps showing up like, yeah, but what if we didn't do that? And sometimes it works. And sometimes really, really doesn't. Because as the story gets bigger, the villains stop being people and they start being belief systems. Pain becomes philosophy. Grief becomes ideology. Loss becomes policy. And once that happens, you're not just fighting individuals anymore. You're fighting entire ways of thinking. You're fighting systems. You're fighting cycles. And that's when Naruto stops being a story about growing up and starts becoming a story about whether any of this can actually be fixed. And this is where things stop being local, because up to this point, you can kind of trick yourself into thinking, okay, the Hidden Leaf Village has a lot of problems. Some bad leadership, some bad systems, but maybe it's just here. And no, this thing is global. Because once the story widens out, you kind of realize every single village is running the same exact playbook. Different flags, but same system, which is how you end up with the Akatsuki. And I'm telling you right now, the older you get, the less these dudes feel like anime villains, and the more they feel like a group chat that got way too serious. Matching cloaks, dramatic lighting, everyone standing in the rain like they scheduled it ahead of time. As a kid, I'm sure you look at them and go, yo, these dudes are cold. But as an adult, you look at them and go, oh no, this is what happens when nobody processes anything. Because the Akatsuki aren't random. They're not evil for the sake of being evil. They are outcomes. Each one is what happens when pain doesn't get healed. It gets turned into a belief system. So let's start with pain. Nagato. Because pain is where the show just drops the subtlety and goes, let's talk about it. This man grew up in a war zone. Not anime war zone. I mean, your house is gone, your parents are gone, that dog you bonded with is gone, your entire childhood is gone. And the reason? bigger nations using your land like a battlefield, which already sounds a little too familiar. So Nagato looks at the world and goes, I see the pattern. People don't learn from words. They don't learn from diplomacy. They don't learn from history. They learn from pain. So his solution? If pain is the only universal language, then I'll make everyone fluent. Which is insane, but also you can follow the logic. That's what makes it scary. Pain isn't sitting there like, I love violence. He's sitting there like, this is the only thing that's ever worked. And the worst part? The system backed him up. Every war, every mission, every necessary sacrifice, all of it feeds his argument. Then you've got Obito, and Obito is dangerous in a completely different way, because Pain still believes in reality. But Obito, he's checked out. Obito is what happens when grief hits so hard that you just go, I'm done with this version of the world. He loses Reen, and with her, the idea that anything here is worth saving. So instead of trying to fix the system, he tries to replace reality itself, which is such a wild jump, but also if you really sit with it, it's just grief turned all the way up to 11. Not, I want revenge, or I want justice, just, I don't want to feel anymore. And if that means putting everyone into a dream world where nothing hurts, then so be it. That's not necessarily villain logic. That's just escape. That's life is too heavy, so I'm out. And then, there's Madara. And Madara is what happens when you live long enough to stop believing people can change. There's no anger or grief left, just acceptance, but the worst possible kind of acceptance. Madara looks at the world and goes, free will is the problem. People choose wrong over and over again. So what if we just take choice out of the entire equation? And here's the scary part. He's not entirely wrong. And that's why he's so dangerous. Because his plan would probably work. No conflict, no war, no more suffering. Just no more choice. No individuality, no growth, no humanity. Peace at the cost of being human. And Naruto stands in front of all of that. Pain's logic, Obito's grief, Madara's conclusion, and goes, nah. And not in some big brain philosopher kind of way either. Naruto is not pulling out debate points. He's not citing history. He's not running simulations. He's basically just standing there like, yeah, I hear you, but I still think people can do better. Which sounds naive. It sounds almost childish. It sounds like something that should not work, and yet, it's the only thing in this entire world that has worked. And this is where we gotta address the meme. Talk no jutsu. Because people clown that all the time, like, oh, Naruto just talks people down. And I've gotta say, no. Naruto doesn't win arguments. He reminds people who they were before they were broken. And that's different. He doesn't convince Pain that he's wrong. He just reminds him he used to believe something else. He doesn't out-logic Obito. He just refuses to let him disappear into that version of himself. He doesn't dismantle Madara's ideology with facts. He just stands there and goes, I'm not giving up on people. And in a world where everybody else gave up a long time ago, that's disruptive. That's dangerous. But that is also very powerful. Because the Akatsuki believe the cycle of hatred is inevitable. Naruto believes it's learned. And if something is learned, then it can be unlearned. Slowly, painfully, messily, but still. And eventually, all of that builds to one unavoidable moment. Because for all the villains Naruto faces, there's one person who understands him better than any of them ever could, and still chooses the opposite path. And that's where everything comes full circle. Because after all the wars, after all the villains, after all the big speeches and world-ending plans, Naruto does something kinda disrespectful. It goes, yeah, all of that was absolutely important, but this right here is the real fight. Because the final problem Naruto has to solve isn't a god, it's not an army, it's not even the system itself. It's his best friend Sasuke. And that right there is perfect. Because Sasuke is the only person in this entire story who lived through the same kind of world, felt the same isolation, the same anger, the same abandonment, and still landed on the opposite conclusion. Naruto looks at pain and goes, I'll carry it, I'll deal with it, I won't pass it on. Sasuke looks at pain and goes, I'm ending the source, whatever it takes. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Sasuke isn't crazy, he's not irrational, he's not even fully wrong. He's what happens when trauma doesn't get processed. It gets turned into a mission, a purpose, a belief system. And once you're there, burning everything down starts to feel like the only honest move. So when Sasuke walks away, when he cuts ties, when he chooses power over connection, when he decides being alone is safer than trusting anyone, Naruto doesn't chase him because of destiny. He chases him because Sasuke is proof that his way might not work, and that terrifies him. Because if Sasuke is right, if the only way to survive this world is to harden yourself, isolate, and control everything, then everything Naruto believes in collapses. So yeah, he gets a little obsessive, a little unhinged about it, but it makes total sense. Because Sasuke isn't just his best friend. Sasuke is the version of himself he refused to become. And if he loses him, that means the world wins. So when they finally throw down, when it's Rasengan versus Chidori, fists, chakra, everything they've got, this is not about strength. This is not about who trained harder. This is two worldviews colliding. Sasuke says cut ties, control everything, force peace. And Naruto says, I'll keep reaching, even if it hurts, even if it never stops hurting. And the fight ends the only way it ever could. Not with a clean win, not with a heroic finish, but with both of them completely spent, broken, laying in the dirt. Arms gone, energy gone, nothing left, which is exactly the point. Naruto doesn't defeat Sasuke. He outlasts the lie. He proves through sheer stubbornness that the cycle isn't unbreakable. It's just easier to follow. And Sasuke finally hits that point where he's like, I just don't want to do this anymore. And not in a big dramatic redemption speech, no fireworks, just pure exhaustion. Just a dude who's been carrying entirely too much for too damn long and he finally lets it all go. And honestly, that is one of the most real endings you could have given that character. Because breaking the cycle of hatred doesn't look clean, it doesn't look heroic. It just looks like choosing to fix something when it would have been way easier to just erase it. It looks like keeping scars instead of pretending they never happened. It looks like believing people can change, even when history says they won't. And Naruto, this loud, ramen-powered, chaotic little goblin of a kid, chooses that every single time. And that's why Naruto matters. And not because it's perfect, but because it says something a lot of stories don't have the guts to say. You can be shaped by a broken world and still choose not to become one of the things that broke you. That's not just a silly ninja cartoon story. That's a very real human one. And that's why this does not end here. Because everything we just went through, the system, the trauma, the villains, the choices, hell, we barely scratched the surface, which is exactly why this is just the beginning. Because from here, we're breaking this whole thing down, piece by piece. 5 more episodes under the AJN Anime Celebration banner. where we're going to slow it down and really sit with it. So if Naruto meant something to you, whether you grew up with it or you're like me and showed up late and got humbled immediately, stick around. Make sure you're following the show wherever you're listening, because this arc, well, it's just getting started. And if you want to keep the conversation going, then please come hang out with us in the Average Joe Nerdcast private Facebook group. That's where we're going to be talking about all of this week to week. I'll put the links to the group in the show notes, or you can head straight over to Facebook right now and in the search bar, just type Average Joe Nerdcast the lobby and you will find the group. So as always, shout out to my player 2. Thank you for letting me spiral this hard over a ninja show, and somehow still taking me seriously, even after I cried to you over Jiraiya. And shout out to everyone behind the scenes that keep this little ship of ours sailing onward into the all blue. And most importantly, shout out to each and every one of you listening right now. Seriously, this community we're building, that's the real end game. Until next time, stay gold, nerd bold. I'll catch you on the next one. Believe it.
Game over.